What's up, guys? In today's video we're going to be discussing the perfect structure of a YouTube video. So if you mess up this structure, you've basically messed up the whole video. And this structure might seem simple. This is the simple layout of it. It's the hook. The hook is what grabs the attention of the viewer. So basically this is the start of the video. This is the most important video, and this is where you lose the most amount of viewers. And then the tension is what keeps the people on the video, keeps them watching, and keeps them engaged throughout the whole video. This is basically the chunk of your video, and the payoff is not necessarily the end, but it's the result of them watching the video. So you can have multiple payoffs in the end, and I'll explain a bit more of that as we get more into the video. But basically, shout out to Warner Cash. He's the one, Cash Cow. Check him out on Twitter. He's the one who basically laid out this tweet. This is a thread from him. I'm basically synthesizing all the information that he gave us. But this is the most important way to structure your video. If you structure your video any other way, you're not going to get the results that you want to expect. And the first things first, so is the hook. So with the hook, what you have to focus on is you have to focus on what the main story is about. So you need to say something, or you need to write your script or edit your video in a way that grabs attention. So here, Wanna Cash Cow used the example of Mr. Beast's video. Mr. Beast is the perfect example because he's mastered, the craft of good hooks. I mean, at the end of the day, he's the biggest creator on the space, so he definitely knows a thing or two about how to make a video go viral. But for this example, it's like I put 100 people in a circle, and the last one to leave wins $500,000. So basically, that hook grabs your attention because there's so many psychological factors in it. Here, Warner writes down how you start to think, of, okay, he put 100 people. Where did he get the 100 people from? Like, what's going to happen? Is there going to be any sabotage? Is there, all those things? Your mind starts racing, and it happens subconsciously within a millisecond, and you don't even know, what's. It's not something you think about. Of like, you pause the video and you start thinking like, oh, did this? That's not what happens. In the moment as you're watching the video, all those questions come into your mind, and that's the important thing about a hook. With a hook, you need to be able to create these multiple questions, multiple loops within the viewer's mind, So with this statement of Mr. B saying, I put 100 people in the circle, and the last one to leave wins $500,000. So first thing you're thinking, who won? You're thinking, like I said, where did he get all these people? What's happening? What's going to be the challenges? What's going to make you win? All these things happen in your mind quickly within milliseconds, and when that happens, obviously you're going to want to see the whole video throughout. So that's the important thing about a hook, is you need to be able to say something, or to even, sometimes it's not about saying it, but it's also about visualizing it, so through editing. So it's like, if you can say it, that's the first step, and then if you can show it of like what's happening. So if you've got really good editing, then that's another level. And then on top of that, if you have different ways to show that, not just through editing, through the whole process and through the whole packaging of the video, including the sound, including all those things, and then create that package that hooks. That's why the first 30 seconds is the most impactful part of your video. So that's what we talk about when it comes to the hook. And then the tension. The tension is basically, here Warner writes it down as, it's the life. This is where the video lives. And basically what it means is, this is what carries the video. This is why the viewer keeps watching. So this is now where they're trying to figure out what's going on. First you've got them in the hook. They've curiosity. That curiosity has been spiked up. You've piqued their curiosity. They're like, oh, okay, what's happening now? Then the second part is, now they want to see what's happening. How do we get, sometimes some creators or some advice on the internet will say this is the payoff or this is the payoff. So this is what happens now when you have to try and tell the story in a certain way. And this is sometimes where a lot of creators lose the viewer, because now the video might start dragging, or it might get a bit confusing, or you don't get to the point the way they want, or the way that you might have presented it through the hook. So that's why it's important to keep, a similar style, and to keep the pacing at a certain way for the whole video, so that you keep the viewer intrigued. So basically, the tension is just there to keep the viewer, keep them locked in. Here, I want to write down some examples. So, like using the Mr. Beast example of 100 people in a circle. So, Mr. Beast would say things like, or would show, let's say, a contestant is not feeling well, they think like they want to quit, or some other contestants will start fighting, friends turning on each other, or Mr. Beast drops like a plot twist, something unexpected. So during the tension, that's where you show them, or you bring up something new that they did not expect. So it kind of keeps them intrigued, because like it's like giving them a box of chocolate. So it's like something new keeps coming, and something different. So that's why the tension is so important, and that's why you have to keep the viewer hooked. It's not just bring the hook and then kind of just run through the story as from like point A to point B, but you have to be more willing, to kind of go a different route and kind of take the viewer through a journey. So it does sound a bit complicated, and it is something that is a higher level. Like, this is what the best creators are really doing, but it's easier when you just look at it through the whole process. You look at these three structures that I'm just mentioning in this video, and once you look at them, you'll be able to structure your video in that way. And that's why the tension is so important, as we've spoken about now. And then now we go on to the final, which is the payoff. So the payoff here, one does say it's not the ending, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the ending. So here's a trick that I'm going to show you guys, or I'm going to reveal to you guys, is when you create a hook for a video, and then you have that tension, the payoff is not the final thing per se of the video. So it's not the end of the video. What happens is this is what the really successful guys do, is they create mini hooks, mini tensions, and mini payoffs. So the video doesn't have one hook, one tension, and one payoff, but with that main hook that you started the video. For example, Mr. Beast, he put 100 people in a circle, and the last one to leave wins 500,000. What happens is there is going to be sub stories within that, and those sub stories have their own hooks, their own tensions, and their own payoffs. So now you've got multiple different stories per se inside the video. So now when the viewer watches, they're going to like, if you've watched Mr. Beast videos, you'll notice that sometimes you focus on a certain contestant, and that certain contestant will have his own story, and then his own story will kind of be followed throughout the video. So his own story has its own structure, like we say, those three parts of the structure. And the payoff is when his story ends, or when his story comes to some sort of a conclusion, whether it's him leaving, or whether it's him betraying a friend, or whether it's him causing chaos. That's something that happens that's specific to his story. So it's like all those multiple mini stories kind of gather, and then they make the whole video as a whole. So what you have to be able to do is, let's say for example, you're doing a video in a niche about history or something, and in this niche maybe you're covering it could be so many things. Maybe you're covering British royal history or something like that, and what happens is you can take an intro that talks about how the British Empire was the biggest empire at some point, and then you, in your intro, You then mention how it was the biggest empire at some point and how it fell, because of something simple. You can say something like that. So obviously that's going to intrigue the viewer of like, oh, how did it fall off something simple? Whatever, this kind of thing. And then in the tension, then you bring up multiple elements. So you bring up the first element of how did it become so successful? You've got a mini story there. And then the second thing is, what was this small thing? You've got a mini story there. I don't know much about British um, uh, royal, things, so I'm not the best, but to explain that specifically. But that's just an example of something you can do just off my head. So now you've got one story, you've got another story, and then you've got the main story of of the video of how it fell. So then you've got that. So now you've got like 3 mini stories, and then you can just work on that. So from there, and then you just expand. So once you've got these ideas in your head, it's gonna make it so much easier for you to just, when you're scripting the video, whether you're using AI, whether you've got a script writer doing it, or whether you're doing it yourself, then it makes it so much easier for you to be able to do it, because now you've got these stories. And once you break it down in that way, is you start from the main thing, which is the hook. So every single part needs to have its own hook, and then the main video or the main hook of the video is what gets the viewer watching. That's the first 30 seconds, because it's so important, and that basically makes or breaks your video. And then the second part, you've got the tension of basically telling the story and bringing elements into it. So it's like you can bring loops, open a loop, close a loop, open another loop, close a loop, and you just keep the viewer engaged throughout the whole video. And then coming to the last thing is, so here, for example, Warner wrote how, okay, the heartfelt breakdown from the winner, the final twist, I'm giving away another 500K. And so this is basically bringing, it's the viewer getting satisfaction from it. So these are the words that Warner used, is this is the resolve of the story. This is the end of the story. Once the story is done, because obviously you hook the viewer, you take them along the journey, and then you're going to leave them at the end, So that's how you can look at it. And once you leave them at the end, obviously you don't want to leave them in a way where they have a lot of unanswered questions from this whole thing. Because the thing is, YouTube looks at viewer satisfaction, and viewer satisfaction is hard to measure metric. It doesn't have a number like CTR, AVD, all those other things. It is a metric that is combined of a lot of things. So the basic of what a viewer satisfaction is does, when the viewer left the video, did they come back to YouTube afterwards, or did they like, did they share, did they leave a comment, and did they come back to the channel, and all those type of things. That's why session time is a very important thing, but that's another topic for another video, talking about retention and session time. Those are other things, but they do include in viewer satisfaction. So having a viewer satisfied with the story, with those loops that you kept opening, it's like, for example, this is a bit of a different example. Let's say you ask someone out, or let's say there's someone you like, and they send you a message. Let's say you hadn't talked to them in a while. Let's say you hadn't talked to them in 2 weeks, and then they send you a message, and they say something random, they can say anything. They can say, oh, hey, you wanna hang out sometime, something like that. And in that moment in your head, obviously you're going to be wondering where they have been, what's happening, those kind of things. So this is basically, this example I'm making is basically like when you have been given, or when there's been that tension that has been created due to the distance. This is a bit off topic, but I just want to drive home the fact that you need to be able to have a payoff. So when this person then comes back and they do the same thing again, and then maybe they leave you on red or something like that, it's going to create this distance from them. I'm using this example because it might be something that's a bit more relatable, because it's happening. It's normal life. Most people have had something similar to this. So that's why I'm using this example specifically. But that's how you need to, or that's something that you need to avoid, of creating this tension without then resolving it. The same way how someone would create distance from you, and then they say something that then brings you, entices you, and then again they push you back without resolving the story. So that's why the resolve is extremely important. The payoff is extremely important. So each and every part of this is very important, and you need to be able to maximize each point. So this is basically it for this video. I don't have too much else to say, but if you guys have any comments, you just leave them below and I'll answer all the comments that I have. I'll read the comments and everything. And I just want someone to learn from this, and even if it's just one person who implements this well and gets the results that they need, that's more than enough for what I'm doing. I'm just synthesizing YouTube education and just making it as simple and as straightforward as possible. No need for high level editing, no need for all those things. It's just explaining to you the best way that I can, and even if it helps one person blow up their video, change their life, that kind of thing, then that's the best thing that can happen. So yeah guys, this is gonna be it for today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.